It's
Let's
now
ride.
time for the words that are recited before each and every game here at Dodger Stadium. Take it away, Finn.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
What is going on, Dodger fans? Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. If you were to catch this most recent game of the Dodgers, it was a wild one. The Dodgers are coming off an 11-9 victory against the Chicago White Sox. They also win the series after dropping the first game. We're going to dive into all that. We're going to preview this giant series that's upcoming. We're going to talk about the mess that is the Anaheim Angels, what a disaster they are. We got some fan questions as well, a whole lot of stuff. But we're also joined today by Greg Bergman. You might recognize his voice on ESPN Los Angeles. He is the executive producer of the Mason and Ireland show, and you hear him on the air as well, chiming in with all his jokes and commentary. Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started with you. What are your thoughts on the Dodgers play in the most recent span?
I mean, it's been a little bit up and down, right? And thanks for having me, by the way. It's nice to see all you guys on the Zoom screen here. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers have been a little bit up and down a little bit recently. We're seeing a little bit more losses than we have in a while. I think there's something like 4-6 in our last 10, or maybe it's 5-5 at this point. I don't know exactly, but yeah, it's been a little bit up and down. But it's it's June, so I kind of expect it at this point.
Definitely. Yeah, they're 2 up on the San Diego Padres for the National League in the West right now. David Rosenthal, let's get you into the show. What are your thoughts on this Dodgers victory over the White Sox?
I think this was one they kind of had to have. The game started out kind of rough. I think I texted in the chat that it's over after it was 4-0. But no, they fought back, and the offense was electric. And I think the big storyline here is obviously Max Muncy. I mean, if he can get back to even close to what we're used to with Max Muncy, then the Dodgers are golden. If Max Muncy is Max Muncy again, this division race is over, and I'm confident in saying that. The pitching, the bullpen obviously was not great today. Tyler Anderson threw too many pitches in the first couple innings, could only go 3. But they did what they needed to do to win. It's that simple. So 2 out of 3 from the White Sox, 2 out of 4 from the Mets. Pretty solid. Would have liked one more win in there against the Mets, but you can't really complain after a 3-game sweep by the Pirates for the first time since 2000. So,
yeah. So from a pure entertainment standpoint, this was probably the game of the year for me. Dodgers were down 4-0, like David just mentioned, but they rallied in the 5th inning. They dropped 6 runs against Dylan Cease and the White Sox. I don't know what Tony La Russa was doing out there. He left Cease out to dry. We saw Freeman double to score Belly and Lux. Then Turner drove in a run with an infield single. Max Muncy came up big with a big 2-run double with 2 outs, I believe. That gave the Dodgers a 5-4 lead. Then in the 6th inning, Freddie Freeman had another RBI base knock. And then on a 1-2 count to Trea Turner, out of nowhere, La Russa decides to intentionally walk him, setting the table for Max Muncy with 2 runners on. And he took that personally because he took that relief pitcher deep, a 3-run home run. That exploded the game, 10-5 Dodgers. Let me pass it over to Jake Reiner, though, so we can get some thoughts on the Dodgers.
Yeah, David was saying that, if we get Max Muncy back, the Dodgers will start rolling again. And I think if we get Max Muncy back after today and he gets on a roll, we have Tony La Russa to thank for that. I mean, that Max Muncy feeds off of that. Feeds off of getting pissed off. And it was a great moment. It was also completely confusing. I think they cut to Freeman on second base. He was just like, what's going on? I've never seen a batter get walked intentionally with a 1-2 count. I've never seen it.
It hasn't happened. That's why you haven't seen it.
Well, then that answers that mystery. You see guys like, the intentional walk where you kind of throw a few balls outside the zone, maybe get guys to chase or whatever it is. And then they eventually put him on. But this was bizarre. And even more bizarre was La Russa's comments after, basically challenging the reporter for questioning if it was a good move or not. He was dead set that was the best move. That was the best move in that position. But I think even worse than that was what Kevin touched on, is the fact that he left Dylan Cease out there to freaking die on the mound. The guy had thrown he had started the inning, I think, with like 65 pitches, and then he threw like 40 plus in that inning and just died out there on the mound. It was unfortunate too, because Cease up until that point had been pitching really well.
And see, it's funny. I saw a couple tweets, and one of them was that overall Trea Turner in his career with a 1-2 count is batting like 197, which is just, that's not good by any stretch of the imagination.
But it makes sense for a 1-2 count.
Right. I mean, that's a normal thing to happen, but still, like, give La Russa just a little bit of credit. Trea Turner has been one of the best hitters in all of baseball with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. So having Freeman on second base, he's maybe thinking like, oh, maybe if we put him on, Muncy's just coming off of the IL, and we're coming off, I don't think he went on the IL, but coming off of his little rehab stint that he had down there. And then so you think maybe that's a good guy to go after. But look what you saw. You're right. Max Muncy is a guy that feeds off of that stuff. And there was another tweet that I saw that when he was coming down and he was dropping F-bombs, like, oh, you're gonna put him on with the F word, and being like, that's effing ridiculous. It was great, because I do think that's going to be something that just gets him pushed off into the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Muncy with a 5 RBI day. I think Tony La Russa was the only person in the world who thought that was the right move, because I heard a clip of the White Sox broadcast, and the commentary basically started off with like, they're going to walk him intentionally. And then the other announcer, I think the play-by-play guy, said, can you explain that one to me? And then they like tried to analyze it, but they had no rationale. And I don't know why Tony La Russa is the manager of the White Sox. He's not the right man for the job, in my opinion. I don't see how he survives past the trade deadline at the current pace that the White Sox are going. And there's another manager who was fired recently that I can't wait to talk about in a little bit. But I know, David, looks like you got something you wanted to say.
Yeah, so I have kind of a contrarian take here. So I'm not saying it was a good move, and it's not something I would have done. But I think Dave Roberts bringing in David Price yesterday, knowing he was going to have to face AJ Pollock, as opposed to taking the Bickford versus Sheets matchup, was significantly worse than what La Russa did today. Because technically, La Russa played the matchup. Yes, you're forfeiting a 1-2 count against Trea Turner, who has a 190 batting average in his career with a 1-2 count. But, I mean, look what Max Muncy's done this year, and then look at what he's done against left-handed pitchers as well. So he took the matchup. It was an incredibly weird and unorthodox way to do it, especially with a 1-2 count. But frankly, I mean, Dave Roberts has had AJ Pollock on his team for about 4 years. And what does AJ Pollock do? He hits lefties very well. And bringing in David Price, arguably your worst lefty on the team, to face AJ Pollock, knowing that AJ Pollock is going to come off the bench, I think is significantly worse than what Tony La Russa did today. Granted, I think they were both stupid, but I think if I had to pick one, I think what Roberts did was worse.
I don't think that Tony La Russa really understands who Max Muncy is. And I think if he had a better understanding of that, he wouldn't have even pitched to Trea Turner. Because if you walk him initially without pitching to him, it's like, yeah, obviously you base open, Trea Turner, Max Muncy's coming up. It's a lefty-lefty matchup. Max Muncy has something to get upset about in that situation. But the fact that you got Trea Turner to 1-2 and Max Muncy's on deck thinking, this Tony La Russa would rather face me with a fresh count versus only having to get one more strike against Trea Turner. No, screw that. Like that's the mind games that you have to play when you're managing a game. And I'm glad that Tony La Russa kind of upstaged Dave Roberts in this game, because had the Dodgers lost and that 4-0 deficit had held up, I was going to come on here and talk about how I have no idea why they brought in Brusdar Graterol with the bases loaded and nobody out. That move made no sense to me in that situation, and it didn't work. So that's another questionable call that Roberts made, but La Russa kind of upstaged him.
So one thing with the Brusdar Graterol thing is that he's been struggling a little bit recently. So I think this was also a situation where they wanted a big time pitcher in a big time spot, because if that inning got out of hand, which it kind of did get a little out of hand, if that inning gets out of hand, you can blame is like, oh, why didn't you bring somebody else in? But he's also been struggling. So having him there in that situation, maybe than the 7th inning, and where it's a much larger situation where who knows what's going to happen, that he thought that he could get out of that with a higher leverage pitcher in that situation. It's about the way that the Dodgers go is very much wherever the highest leverage situation is, that's where they want that pitcher. So that's kind of what I think the thinking was behind Gratterall there.
I see what you're saying. I just look at this and I say the Dodgers offense really hasn't put it together. This is before they scored 6 runs. So I'm thinking that spot, you're right. It has a chance for the game to just completely be blown open and then you have no chance to come back. Why wouldn't you try and put, one of your best high leverage relievers in that spot to stop the bleeding there, to give your offense a chance? Didn't end up mattering anyway, because the Dodgers put up 11 runs, but I see what you're saying.
Rather have seen in that situation than if you didn't want Gratterall with the bases loaded and nobody out.
I mean, Phillips,
yeah, maybe. But yeah, I think they just wanted to go. It was probably some matchup based things too. And also Brusdar gets a lot of soft contact for the most part. So you're thinking maybe he gets some double plays, maybe a strikeout here and there. So I don't know. That's just my thought on it.
Yeah. I think all things considered, Gratterall got the job done for me. It could have been a lot worse. And really what did him in was just hitting the batter with the bases loaded, allowing that additional run to score. But besides that, I mean, Gratterall got the job done, got the sac fly. You'll take that with the bases loaded, then no one else was able to score. So
the hit by pitch, that was the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Gavin Lux, who had a big game as well, 4 hits. He raised his batting average up to 290. He's got a 373 on base on the year, and he's 9 for his last 22 with a 480 on base. So despite not hitting the home runs, the singles are there for Lux, and he's been on fire.
Yeah, I think he just missed the home run today too. That final at bat where he hit the double, there's a broken bat. I think if he gets clean contact or no broken bat, I think that's a home run. And that's literally the only thing we haven't seen Gavin Lux with this Dodgers lineup and where he's placed in the lineup. They don't really need the power from him. They need him to set the table for the top of the lineup, and that's exactly what he's been doing.
Yeah, man, if you can go 4 for 5, if you get, or even a couple of hits just getting on base, allowing to get to the bottom of the lineup to get back up to Mookie Betts, then he'll be just fine. I've never been much of a believer in Gavin Lux. I just think he's just kind of a guy for the most part, but I'm hoping that I'm wrong. And I hope that he becomes somebody that is just more than the 4A player that I've kind of seen him become. But yeah, he was great today, and he's been, very steady, solid all year. So hopefully that continues. That's all the way throughout.
All right, let's go to the second game, because there was another star who's just been the most consistent player on the Dodgers from a pitching standpoint. And I'll lead it in with the question from Matt, one of our loyal listeners at DubQuacker7. What makes Tony Gonsolin's stuff works? He points out to us that he's not really a K guy, but despite all that, he's generating a lot of soft contact. Tony Gonsolin, for his 5th consecutive start, was able to pitch 6 innings, gave up 1 run. He has a National League best 1.58 ERA on the season. And he's also holding opponents to, I think, an MLB best 157 opposition against. So Tony Gonsolin, what a story he's been. So let's talk about Gonsolin for a second, then I'll read some hard-hitting stats about why he's so successful.
The thing I love about Tony Gonsolin this season is that it appears as though the Dodgers can get a win with him on the mound when they need it the most. It usually comes after a loss, which is kind of what you want in your ace to kind of stop the bleeding if there is a bit of a slide. He's been that guy. He's been like the de facto ace of this staff, which is kind of remarkable when you consider all the rest of the names that are in this rotation. But I think what makes him most effective, and I think we've talked about it on the show quite a bit, David certainly has brought this up, is his control. I mean, when he's able to pinpoint his pitches, he's like Greg Maddux out there. I mean, if he can put his pitches where he wants them to go, whether it's the fastball, the curveball, and all the rest, he's effective as any pitcher in the league. And he's proving that, and he's dominating hitters, and he is getting that soft contact, but he's also getting a lot of strikeouts. And the most important part is that he's got the length too. He's going at least 6 innings pretty much every time out, which is huge for the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking for like an analytical angle of why Tony Gonsolin has been so good, I mean, besides the fact that he has command this year, which is something we haven't seen in the last year and a half with Gonsolin for the most part, I mean, it's his secondary pitches, the split finger and the slider. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. Opponents are hitting 82 off the slider and 120 off the split finger. He's in the top 3 percentile in hard hit percentage. So even when these guys are making contact, it's not going anywhere. It's that simple. And he's only been able to do that because he's been locating these pitches. He's always had the stuff. That's never been an issue with Gonsolin. But I think this year, aside from going deeper into games than we've seen, it's the command for sure.
I think one of the things that the biggest moment for him was yesterday when I think it was the 5th inning. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but he had guys on base. There was nobody out, and he worked through it and got through that with only allowing 1 run. Well, that could have been another one of those blow up innings. It kind of reminded me why we love Walker Buehler so much, who he hasn't been this year, but in the playoffs, he'll have bases loaded, nobody out, and he finds a way to get through that inning, and he is pitching, and he's like to your location that you're talking about, Jake. That was exactly the same thing that I saw from Tony Gonsolin yesterday. Getting out of that inning was massive and made it so that now you kind of trust him out there a little bit more in those types of situations, where in times past we saw it in playoff series where he pitched in those types of situations. He wasn't getting out of it. He wasn't locating his pitches. So I think that was a huge spot for him.
Yeah, I love that Roberts allowed him to work out of that jam. And the pitcher that he's reminding me a lot right now up until this point is the season that Zach Greinke put together back in 2015. Every time out, Gonsolin's throwing a quality start. And the other big thing with him is he's just actually healthy this season. Last season, he was naggered by that shoulder all year long, which really threw off his command. And he is locating his slider for strikes, as David pointed out, the low batting average against, 39% whiffs that he's generating. And he's yet to give up a single home run with that slider. And then the split finger fastball, the spin rate is just out of control right now on that. And he's only given up 1 home run. He's just generating a lot of soft contact, and he's locating that pitch where he wants it to go. And you can just tell he's got confidence out there. He's pitching with stride, and he just trusts everything that he's throwing right now to the batters.
Yeah, I love the K struts yesterday. It was so cool. I mean, he's got that confidence. He's got that swag. And I agree with Kevin in that 5th inning when Roberts let him figure it out and get out of that inning was huge. I mean, because you got to think that like in those moments, if your manager trusts you, that means you're a guy, you know, and we're used to seeing the Dodgers kind of baby Gonsolin a little bit, you know, take him out at the first sign of trouble, but he's earned the right to be there. And so letting him work through that and then proving that he could is going to be huge moving forward.
So I think one of the things that he reminds me of a little bit, and I hope it's not this case, is Ross Stripling early in the year, and when he became an all-star, and then he kind of fell off a little bit in the back end. Same thing with Alex Wood, where he did the same thing, where I don't think he lost a start for the first 10 or 11 starts before, and then he was an all-star. So hopefully that's going to tell a lot about Gonsolin in the second half of the season. If he can keep up with the same type of outings that he's having now down in the end, if we can start counting on him when it comes down to the playoff time.
That will definitely be the biggest challenge for him because the workload has not even been close to a full season's yet. So I'm definitely curious.
One more thing. He's just from last year to this year. Last year, he threw his 4-seam fastball 43% of the time. This year, it's down to 35% of the time. And we've seen an uptick in usage in the split finger and the curveball. So I think just mixing it up more has helped Gonsolin as well.
And then the Dodgers dropped that first game. Michael Kopech just absolutely shoved. We already talked about the David Price. We're all frustrated with him on this podcast. I feel like the time is nearing for him to just be DFA'd. I don't know what else there is for him to prove at this point because it's just been pretty underwhelming. I'm comparing him to the Luol Deng experience.
There's just no role for him on this team. I mean,
there hasn't been since he joined the team. There hasn't been.
No, he's the guy that comes in when you're up by 7 or you're down by 7.
Right.
Just kind of give him a couple of innings and hope he doesn't blow it or make it worse.
All right, cool. Let's talk about this Giants series because that's next up on the slate. Dodgers going to San Francisco. They got 3 games. Right now, the 30-26 Giants are 6.5 back of the Dodgers. Got to like that little buffer because last season, these two teams really battled it out neck and neck. Every game mattered. Dodgers have a little bit of more luxury despite losing 5 of 6 to the Pirates and splitting with the Mets. They still have that 6.5 lead. But the first game features Walker Buehler looking to redeem himself. He'll be facing Jacob Junis, who's got a 3-1, 2.51 ERA. Junis used to be on the Royals. He was pretty bad. I guess he's a part of the Giants cheating lab experiment now, because I don't know how he's rocking a 250 ERA. But let's talk about Walker Buehler, because a couple of our listeners did want us to get in on this. So first from Steve M, how do you fix Walker Buehler? And then at Ryan Catch the Blues as well, wanted to talk about Buehler as well. I mean, to set the topic up, in his last outing against the Mets, he was flat out awful. Shortest outing of his career, went 2 1/3 innings, gave up 5 runs, 2 home runs. He had a 4-1 lead, blew it. 3.84 ERA on the season, but over his last 7 starts, closer to a 5 ERA with a 1.5 WHIP.
If we knew how to fix Walker Buehler, none of us would be on this podcast right now, and we'd be on the Dodgers coaching staff.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to fix him. I mean, he just isn't throwing his fastball as well as we're normally seeing him throw his fastball. And it's not just the velocity, it's the movement too. I was actually, because I have nothing better to do some days, I was rewatching some old playoff highlights, not just of Walker Buehler, but just, I was curious. I kind of forgotten what happened in that NLCS against the Brewers in 2018. I was just watching some highlights. And Walker Buehler, I mean, there's just, and even in the 2020 World Series too, there's just that extra zip and that extra movement that's just unhittable from his fastball. That's his bread and butter. And the breaking stuff is working. But when teams know that you don't have your fastball, they're going to be sitting on that breaking stuff. And we saw what happened when I think it was Francisco Lindor just sitting on that curveball, just absolutely demolished it. I don't really know why this is happening, but yeah, it is concerning at this point.
So it feels like a command issue to me too. Everything you're saying is absolutely right, Jake, but it's like the velocity is down, but he's not pinpointing anymore. The location is off. It doesn't seem like he has control. He's walking more guys than he normally does. And it just, if your velocity drops the way that it is, and you're not able to have the extra movement, and you're not finding, and you don't have the location either, you're going to get smacked around over and over again. And so there's just something that needs to be found out for him. And to fix him, yeah, like you said, I have no idea how to fix him. I think the only way to go about it is finding a little time on the 15-day IL and let him just kind of figure it out on the back and say he has an inflamed shoulder or he has a knee injury or whatever you want to call it. They get away with it, but let him sit for a little bit, kind of work out, find that velocity again, find the accuracy, and then hopefully from there he'll get better. But the Dodgers love to do this. They love to just let the guys work through it. We saw it with Bellinger. We were starting to see it with Muncy, but they finally said, okay, let's have him go down and get some rehab starts. Hopefully they do the same thing with Buehler. They have enough pitching to get through it. Mitch White will do just fine. They'll bring up Ryan Pepio. They'll be able to have other guys that can fill in that spot, especially this early in the season. Let them figure it out.
Yeah, so like we said last week, I mean, the issue with Buehler is 100% the fastball. Well, there's no secret about that. Everybody in the league knows it. And frankly, I mean, it could be a couple things, but the thing that stands out to me, honestly, is the spin rate of the fastball. I mean, you go to 2020, it was averaging around 2,500. You go to 2021, it was around 2,450-ish. And you go to this year, and it's about 2,260 on average. So that's a significant drop in spin rate. And that's, you put that with someone whose fastball is already lacking a lot of movement. It's a pretty flat-ish fastball, and he's been able to get away with it because of the spin rate and the high velocity. So take that as you may, but I mean, that's probably a factor here. I can't imagine how that's not a factor. And people are going to throw out the sticky stuff debate and into that situation with Buehler. I don't know if I'm fully there. I don't know how much of a role that plays in this situation. But in terms of the actual success of the fastball, the spin rate being down is 100% at least a top 2 or 3 culprit here, along with mechanics and possibly just general wear and tear on the arm.
Yeah, according to the David Vassay reports, they think it's just purely a mechanical issue. They're attributing it to one, the way his foot is landing on the mound. It's not how it used to be, and just the release point, something is off as well.
I mean, I buy that though.
The velocity at the end of the day overall is still there. It's about equal to where it was last season. It's just not spinning, and thus that's why opponents are hitting about 377 against his four-seamer. Slugging is over 600, and now it's starting to affect the cutter as well. That's got a 277 opponent batting average against. So yeah, like Jake mentioned, that now they can just sit on his breaking stuff. And I think Pete Alonso was another guy who took Buehler deep.
I mean, the team has to say something, right, David? You have to say something to get it out. Oh, he's just, his foot's not landing in the right spot. But once he figures that out, he'll be fine. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much stock I put into that Vassay report, but I wouldn't buy it, frankly.
Well, last season, they didn't really have the luxury of putting Buehler on the IL to rest him because they were just so short on starters. This season, I guess they could do that with Clayton Kershaw coming back Sunday and Andrew Heaney returning very soon as well. But I don't know. I don't really see the Dodgers doing that right now. I think they're going to let him figure it out against the Giants.
Always do.
And if he shoves, then the people that were questioning him will be quiet for at least another outing. And what can you say? I mean, I feel like people are acting like Buehler's throwing out a 5 ERA every time out. But I mean, his ERA is still under 4. Besides that one Mets outing, he's been serviceable all season. I mean, he has 6 wins. It's not like he's 0-6 or something. He's still a freaking good starter.
He's giving up runs. That's the problem. It's just he's not the same guy that we've seen. He was supposed to be a Cy Young candidate coming into this season. People thought
my pick.
Yeah.
And he's not putting guys away either, which is tough. He's getting 2 strikes on him, but he's not able to put him away.
It's an 8% put away percentage with the fastball. 8.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. They're also hitting him. It's not, I mean, it's location, but they're hitting him hard too. These aren't soft contact. He's getting batted around. That's the problem. He might get the wins because the Dodgers have an incredible offense, but for the most part, he's not the same guy.
Yeah.
His K percentage, his whiff rate, and his hard hit against are all bottom half of the league. So not the same guy. But then after Buehler, the second start, this is the curious case for me. I don't know why people are acting like Julio Urias is having a bad season. He's sporting a 2.78 ERA, but the way you hear people on Twitter and Facebook, you would think he's got a 4.5 ERA, but his ERA right now is better than it was when he finished last season. And then he's facing TBD, so I don't know who the Giants are throwing yet.
Great pitcher, that TBD, but it's because people just like to lump those two together. They lump Buehler and Urias together because you see if one has a bad outing right next to the other one, they think, oh, they're both having bad outings. He pitched great the other night. In his last outing, he pitched, they ended up losing the game. I think that's part of the problem too, is the Dodgers are losing his starts. So what is he? Something around 3-5, 2-5, something along those lines. So he's already so when you see the losses piling up, they think, oh, he's pitching poorly. He's only giving up a run, 2 runs here and there. He's actually pitching pretty well. And there's a couple outings where he'll be a little bit wild. So he'll have 3-4 walks. And that's a little bit concerning. But for the most part, he's getting out of the innings. He's doing the things that Walker Buehler is not doing. I think Urias has been just fine.
Yeah. Aside from that one Philly start where he got rocked.
Yeah.
It's been pretty great.
Yeah.
And, another thing that's not really talked about, and I think could be, a factor in why people are saying that, is he's not getting any run support. I mean, last year he was like top 2 in the league in run support. And this year, I think he's bottom 10 or bottom 15. So I think that plays, if the Dodgers win that game, I think that kind of generally has a positive impact on people's opinion of the starter. And if they lose, it's like, oh, well, Julio gave up 2 runs. So what's wrong with it?
Yeah, I think he's getting like 3 1/3 runs support a game, which is very low. But I mean, the one thing
last year he was at like 7 or 8 a game.
The one thing that I will say that does stand out with Urias to me, he also isn't really striking out batters. 58 innings pitched, 46 strikeouts.
Yeah, but to go back to the other point, that's why wins are such a weird stat. Like that's why they don't really look at it in the MVP or the Cy Young race anymore, because you have a guy with 6 wins and Walker Buehler that's pitching pretty terribly over the last couple starts. And you have Urias who's pitching pretty well and is not getting the wins. So it's really just about your team.
Final game of that matchup series will be pretty exciting. Carlos Rodon taking the mound for the Giants and Clayton Kershaw making his return. He's been out for over a month now. So excited to see what Kershaw will do. I'm estimating that they let him go 5 innings, 75 pitches. Give or take.
Pretty standard, yeah.
Yeah.
Watch him throw another perfect game through 5, and then Roberts has to take him out.
Yeah, what do you do in that situation? Let's say he goes 5 innings. But he's at right around 80 pitches at 6 innings or 7 innings, and he's a perfect game, 80 pitches. You take him out or you let him go. He's coming right off the IL.
I'd
Take
take
him
him out.
Oh, they take him
Yeah,
out.
there it is.
They
Take
take
him
him out.
Yeah. No, but what do you do?
They're not deviating from that plan.
I'm taking him out.
So you would take him out. You would not let
I
him
would.
stay.
He's too injury prone.
We need him.
Yep, totally agree. But that'll make for great
I
sports.
hate
radio
it. I
content.
would hate it. I would hate it, but
Well, then we can be mad at Hanley Ramirez again, not Dave Roberts.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Dodgers won the first 2 games of the season series so far. That also happened last season. We know how the end result worked out. So the Dodgers can't take this team lightly. I know they won't. Jock Peterson's got 13 home runs for the Giants. Mike Yastrzemski's been another hot hitter as well. 845 OPS on the season. Luis Gonzalez, reincarnated, I guess, had a walk-off hit against the Rockies a couple nights ago.
of course he did.
But other than that, this Giants offense has been pretty cold overall. I mean, Brandon Crawford's regressed. Evan Longoria has been a non-factor. They had to send down their top prospect from a couple years ago, Joey Bart, because he can't hit the baseball whatsoever. And then Kevin Padlo, they recently DFA'd. We saw him in the first go around. So just not a lot of action for the Giants, which is good news for the Dodgers.
I think they were talking about activating Brandon Belt for the series too, so we might get to see him.
Oh, fun.
I mean, it was going to happen, right? You couldn't have the same type of season as you did last year. That they just were perfect all the way through. I mean, Buster Posey had one of his best seasons, in years, and then he retired. So all those guys were just kind of past their prime. Crawford, Longoria, Posey last year. They were all, at a point of they were not supposed to get better. They were supposed to start declining, and so now you're starting to see those declines start to happen. I'm not surprised by it, but they're going to be there. They're going to be there towards the end. They're always going to be. When you have Farhan Zaidi kind of picking and choosing guys and bringing them up, they're always going to find guys that are going to get those big hits like the Luis Gonzalez.
Anything else you guys wanted to talk about with this Dodgers-Giants series?
I mean, it's gonna be a tough series no matter what. No matter how good or how bad the Giants are, or how good bad the Dodgers. I think that that Walker Buehler start is going to be pivotal. I mean, not only for him, but to set the tone for the series. It'll kind of dictate how we think the series is going to go from there on out. If the Dodgers are able to take 2 out of 3 at least in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed we're going to miss Logan Webb. I was like facing him. I like facing the team's best pitchers in the regular season, just in case we have to see him in the postseason. That means we get a look at him. But Rodon is going to be a tough start for sure. That is the typical prototype of pitcher the Dodgers have historically struggled against. These other 2 games, Junis and whoever else they decide to throw, probably a bullpen game or something else, those should be wins, frankly. I mean, the Giants are not what they were last year. Muncy looks good. He plays well in that ballpark, as everybody knows. So I'm expecting two wins in this series. I'll be there tomorrow night, so I hope one of those is tomorrow. Nice. Hey, if I get there early enough, maybe I'll say hi to my best friend, Logan Webb.
We also need Buehler to go deep because the bullpen was pretty overworked today. You got to assume Daniel Hudson won't be available after throwing like 40 pitches. Gratterall's
boy, Daniel Hudson had to work today, didn't he?
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
He needed to get that final out too, because that was for sure going to be his last batter, and then it would have been David Price time, and then it would have been me being angry time.
Yeah. Kimbrel should be back, but I don't think Gratterall will be available by pitching back-to-back days. Bestia had to work a lot as well. Ferguson, who's been awesome so far this season, I don't know if they're comfortable using him on back-to-back days either, so that's a question mark. And then Phil Bickford has kind of just been average so this season.
And that's Daniel Hudson on back-to-back days too, so he's done.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Almonte may have to be the closer tomorrow.
I really like Almonte,
yeah.
I think
he's been great.
He's been great for my Blake Trine withdrawals. He's got the same pitch mix too.
Yep.
It's been phenomenal. All right. After the Giants, the Dodgers then face the Angels, who, wow, where do I even start with the Angels? Well, first of all, they're currently on a 14-game losing streak. They were 27-17 at one point. They're now 27-31. They recently fired Joe Maddon. I know one of the running jokes on your guys' show is that you interviewed Joe Maddon and then they didn't win a game since.
Yeah. Well, no is the highlight that we like to play from him, but disagreeing with Mason because that's what every big name person that comes on has to do now. But yeah, like when it comes to Joe Maddon, I was not surprised by this, and I don't know why so many people are surprised by this. It's because of the name. It's the same thing with Tony La Russa up in Chicago, that he's going to get let go, but they're sticking around because of the name. And then Joe Maddon, if you talk to anybody that's from Chicago, even after he won the World Series, they despised him. They thought that he made terrible decisions in the under pressure. They thought that he couldn't understand how to use a bullpen. And the fact of the matter was that they won based off of the team that they just happened to have a monster team. And he blew some of those games in the next ongoing seasons. Even though he won 90 games with all those guys, he has not been the same guy that he has been. They're under 500 in the 3 years that he's been with the Angels, and everything that he's done it's been, even in the offseason, has been rubbing people the wrong way. His act gets old. I wasn't surprised whatsoever that he got fired, and really didn't have a problem with it. Everybody just like, oh my God, Joe Maddon was fired. Well, fine. If it was Jace Tingler, would you still be upset? No, you wouldn't care. But because it was Joe Maddon, they're like, this is ridiculous. So it made perfect sense to me to let him go. It's really a Shohei Ohtani thing too, because he wants to win. And if they're losing in the middle of a 12-game losing streak at the time, that's not showing Ohtani that you want to win.
All right. I got to get back in on this before someone steals my thunder, but I wanted to bring up, this is either going to be my out of left field or idiot of the week.
Can I just say one more thing on Joe Maddon real quick? I'm sorry.
Okay, Kevin. Yes. Just do not blow what I want to say.
Okay, I probably won't. It's been well documented that I do not like Joe Maddon. I think he's pretentious. I think he cares way more about proving to us, the everyday baseball watcher, that he's smart and that he's smarter than all of us. And he makes these unconventional moves that rarely ever work out. And this is where it got him. This is exactly where it got him. On his couch, watching the Angels lose instead of being in the dugout watching the Angels lose. So, frankly, it was a long time coming, in my opinion. I mean, this guy only won a World Series because the Indians blew a 3-1 lead. So I think he's one of the most overrated managers we've seen in the last 2 decades. And I frankly, I don't feel bad for him. He's pretentious. He's obnoxious. And I don't think he's that good of a manager. So I just needed to say that. It's well documented. I do not like him.
You know who he reminds me of? It's the same type of guy who won a championship because they had a great team around him, and everybody has this great feeling towards him, but I would never want him coaching my team. Doc Rivers. They're basically the same person to me. That he won a championship in Boston, and he's been basically just mediocre everywhere else he's gone. It's been the team around them that has always gotten them further into the playoffs. But when it comes to an actual series that they need to win, he's not there. He's the wrong guy. Both those two, not fans.
I'm not trying to defend Joe Maddon, but he did take the Tampa Bay Rays to a World Series.
Who was leading their organization at that point?
Andrew Friedman.
All right, so who really took him?
Right.
Who really took him?
Well, here's my question. How much of it was Joe Maddon and how much of it was just bad rosters? They had, up until this season, they've had zero pitching. I mean, they've had the pitching isn't great this year, but it's leaps and bounds better than it ever was.
I'm sorry. If you have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on a team and you can't even make the playoffs, you should not be managing that team. I don't care if I'm pitching for you. I don't.
But if you don't have a pitching staff and Raisel Iglesias is your closer, like, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to win games when
also the peaks have not overlapped, because when Ohtani was going off, Trout basically missed the season.
Yeah. That's fair.
They've had injuries. They've had a lot of different things. But let's be honest, a manager absolutely wins and loses you maybe 10 games in an entire season whatsoever. So do I think that the Angels are losing because of Joe Maddon? No, but he's not helping out the situations. And when there's times when he works with the bullpen and when to bring in which guy and playing matchups and deciding which way to go in different situations, I think he makes the wrong decision. So
I think the bigger point is what you made earlier, Greg, which is about his relationship with the players. That's why Dave Roberts is sticking around as long as he is. The players love him. He's able to control that roster and make it a welcoming environment for everyone. And he's got to manage a lot of egos. One of the big reasons why, many reasons why the Lakers didn't work out last season, but Frank Vogel lost the room. I mean, the guy won a championship with that team, and then he lost the room and he wasn't able to, get anybody else to buy in. And even when the Dodgers are going through, rough stretches, it's not like their foundation implodes. And that's really the manager's job of a baseball team. And if Joe Maddon is losing the room or he's not communicating effectively, then yeah, he's got to go. But again, I don't think he is the sole reason or even the biggest reason why the Angels haven't been successful.
Oh yeah. By the way, just real fast, Frank Vogel got a completely raw deal, and I don't need to get into that, but he got an absolutely raw deal.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
All right. So back to where I was trying to go with this. Idiot of the week, out of left field, all combined into one. This was when the Angels were on their 13-game losing streak. They thought this brilliant idea would end that rut, and that was with all their players deciding to walk up to Nickelback. That has to go down in my book as one of the worst, not like baseball related, just like not strategic or whatever you want. You probably get what I'm trying to say, but unrelated to baseball, that is like the most idiotic thing I've ever heard in sports. Of all the great artists that exist in the world, how do you come up with Nickelback, who not only sucks and makes your ears bleed, but the Angels ended up losing that game 1-0. So
I think that was the point, though.
Yeah, that was.
I think it was like an ironic thing.
I was listening to MLB Network, and apparently like their bullpen quality assurance coach or some random position hypes the team up on the bus by blasting Nickelback.
That's a Phil Nevin thing right there. He's like, this is my first act as acting manager to play Nickelback. I mean, they could have come up with a better band. Maybe it's like, oh, hey, it's a reverse Jinx kind of thing. Play the really bad songs, the really bad, bands, and maybe we'll play better. It was not a good. It was funny. I mean, overall,
there's a Nickelback lyric in their song "Rockstar" that goes, "It's like the bottom of the ninth. I'm never gonna win."
Yep. I have to just deviate a little bit. I was on Sports Central last night on CBS, and I did a entire Angels highlight, and I mixed in all of the Nickelback lyrics that I could come up with to fit each scenario. And that was one of them that I had in there. It's the bottom of the ninth and I'm never going to win. And I put that at the end of the highlight. I think that was the point though. Like, I think win or lose, you're in the middle of what was a 13-game losing streak, ended up becoming a 14-game losing streak. And you're just trying to shake something up, get something else going. It obviously didn't work. I don't think that if you would have picked any other artist, it would have worked.
It would have worked 100%. This falls on Nickelback.
100%, Kevin.
No,
this falls on Nickelback. It's not the fact that they wanted to choose an artist as their walk-up song. It's the fact that they thought Nickelback was a good idea. When
it's a reverse psychology type of thing.
Yeah, it's like an ironic.
This is their hype
thing.
Music. I'm telling you, I heard the bullpen coach get interviewed.
I don't care what the hell the quality control coach said. There's no way that Angels roster decided to do this and be like, oh yeah, this is going to get us super hyped up. Like we're going to play well.
I'm telling you,
if there was a band that Mike Trout liked, Nickelback kind of seems like his speed. I don't know. He seems like the type of dude. He is a little bit dry.
Yeah, look at Brandon Marsh. That guy looks like a Nickelback fan.
Yeah, Brandon Marsh definitely listens to Nickelback. maybe even Noah Syndergaard. Who knows?
Yeah. You could have played the Offspring, who are from Orange County. You could play No Doubt, who are from Orange County.
That's not funny.
But it wasn't the point, though.
Yeah, you're missing.
Did you see?
I'm not missing the point. The point is they thought Nickelback was gonna hype them up.
Not seriously, though.
No, seriously.
Did you see what the Angels tweeted out?
I did.
Did you see what the Angels tweeted out after the game? That was great.
What did they tweet out? I didn't see it.
It's that freeze frame of that from the song Photograph of Chad Kroeger. He's holding up the photograph, but in the photograph was the final score of them losing 1-0.
That's really funny, actually.
Yeah.
I did see that now. I would have brought that up. That's funny as hell.
Yeah, so the Dodgers might be facing Noah Syndergaard, who was initially scheduled to face the Mets, but I guess he chickened out. Maybe he couldn't handle the Mets booze or something. So he might be facing the Dodgers. It might be Reed Detmers. And it also looks like Shohei Ohtani could be lined up. I'm not entirely sure how the Angels are going to map this out. but definitely would love to see Ohtani start against the Dodgers, who actually the Dodgers have owned him in the past.
He hasn't been pitching all that great just in general right now. Hasn't really been hitting too much either. So, I mean, it was bound to happen. He's going to go through ups and downs, but I would love to see Shohei. If he's pitching one of those games, I got to figure out a way just to get to the ballpark.
Yeah, that's must see.
Yeah.
All right. So that's pretty much all I have. Baseball wise, just wanted to mention real quick that Kevin Pillar out for the season, fractured his shoulder, played a whopping 4 games, I think, for the blue team. So that sucks for him because he actually wanted to wait it out in the minors to play for his childhood team, the Dodgers. Then he got the call finally after the Muncy injury, and then he got hurt. But other than that, the Dodgers doing good health-wise. We got Kershaw coming back. Heaney's coming back. Blake Trinan is progressing very well in the right direction as well. So don't know the update with Danny Duffy. That is the big question mark. Feel like he was supposed to be back in June. Have not heard a single update. This is just like last season when they traded for him.
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing with Danny Duffy? Like, what are we doing?
He was one of those dudes that you brought in. It was basically a Tommy Canley type thing situation, right? Where you bring him in and hope that he comes in and is like, okay, great. We knew you were going to be out for the entire year last year, but we brought you in to pitch this year, just like Canley. And then Canley got hurt again, obviously. But that's what Danny Duffy was. He was just an insurance, like, hey, let's see if we can bring you in. And next year you do something for us.
We might as well still have Cole Hamels on the roster. I mean, it's the same thing.
It was exactly the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we need any more Danny Duffy updates unless he's like actually has pitched the game for the Dodgers. I think we're good on that, Kevin.
I figured someone's probably wondering.
Yeah. Should we do a little MLB pickle? Remember that thing that I did last time?
Yeah, if you want.
What is this? What is an MLB pickle?
Greg, I actually took this from you.
Wonderful. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. So you know how you guys do Pirtle?
Oh God. All right. Good luck.
This is
tough, man.
This is MLB. This is MLB's version of Pirtle.
Kevin and I got it in 3 last week.
Oh, yeah, nice. Nice job.
Okay, so
they had something. It was Wardle, and now did they change it over to pickle? Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is what we're looking at here. And since Greg is our guest, Greg, come up with a random baseball player. Could be a pitcher, a batter, but it has to be current.
All right, so I miss him. So give me Corey Seager.
Corey Seager. All right.
Not bad.
So here's the deal. This player bats left-handed. He's from the United States, and he's either in the American League or he's in the National League West, but he's not in the AL West.
Okay, let's try an NL West player then.
And it's not a shortstop, and he's not 28. It doesn't say whether he's older or younger.
Yeah, it's kind of different from Pirtle in that it doesn't tell you how far away you are from it, but yeah.
Let's go with Bellinger.
All right, Cody.
Okay, so is that 1 or 2 away since it's 26? Is that
it's within 2.
Okay, so now we know it's an American League player too, right?
It's not in the AL West.
It's not in the NL West, so it has to either be in the AL Central or AL East.
Oh, damn.
Let's see, an American left-hander. What about a pitcher?
It could be.
Let's see. What is Garrett Cole a lefty or a righty?
Righty.
Throw in Joey Gallo. Why not?
Okay, AL East.
Okay. So not the Yankees. So it's got to be the Red Sox. It's not a center fielder, so it's not going to be like a Kike. Toronto, Tampa Bay.
Or the Orioles.
Or the Orioles. Yeah, well, I am Orioles. They don't exist. Let's see.
I'm not participating because I already got this one today. So just FYI.
Not great with the AL. Let's see. Who is on Toronto?
How about McClanahan? Shane McClanahan.
I was about to say.
Bingo.
Oh,
Bang.
nice.
Bang. Absolute snipe.
Wow. Hey, that's a picture. There you go. See?
There you go. Shane McClanahan.
He
Nice
could win the
job.
Cy Young this year too. He's killing it.
Yeah. Anyway, that was fun.
Yeah, nice job.
And also, Greg, if you wanted to bring that up on Mason and Ireland, you could do MLB Pickle as well as Pirtle.
There is no way that Ireland is getting anything that is baseball related, and especially if it's outside of Dodgers or Angels.
What about Mace?
Mace would do really well with the NL. So if it's an AL team, there's no chance because he's in a fantasy baseball league, but it's NL only. So he knows everybody.
That's
in
so
NL.
weird.
It is the worst league I've ever been part of in my life. It's a 6-hour draft. It's all by auction based. And there's all these extra rules. You have to get a certain amount of games for each one. It was awful. Like if you want to go on the waiver wire, you have to send in an email request.
Oh God.
Oh, it's terrible. It's so behind the times. It was awful.
Yeah,
all of his leagues are crazy. I'm done with fantasy anyway. No more ever again.
All right, guys. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before I ask one final question to Greg?
Just real quick, my final thought is congratulations to Justin Turner for getting his 1,000th hit as a Dodger. I think that's 18th most in Dodger history. Not having the best year in terms of Justin Turner standards, but nonetheless still a Dodger legend, and congratulations to Justin Turner.
Yeah, congrats, JT.
Anything, Jake?
No, I'm good. I had my fill with MLB Pickle. That was great.
All right. So, Greg, I want your honest thoughts on this, unless you have to be silent. Do you trust Russell Westbrook? Do you think they can win with him? Do you think they get rid of Westbrook? What are they going to do?
I don't think he goes anywhere. Do I trust Russell Westbrook? Absolutely not. I'm a huge UCLA fan, and I mean, you see behind me, you can see the John Wooden pyramid of success. But either way, no, Russell Westbrook was an absolute disaster. Why do we think that at some point Russell Westbrook is going to be different than he was last year? All of a sudden he's going to decide, yes, I'm okay with being a six man. Yes, I'm okay with distributing the ball and not shooting threes. Yes, I'm okay with not just driving down the lane with absolute abandon and just going to wherever I need to do. I don't think he's going to be anything other than who he is, because that's what they tell him too. And nobody talks about it. Everybody tells him, just be Russ, let Russ be Russ. And he does not, he never does it. So I don't think he's going to change. I don't think they're going to win a championship with him. Though my only hope is that at some point in the end, right around the trade deadline, they can move him for a couple pieces that could actually help them move to being a championship level, and with as being an expiring contract. But otherwise, I don't expect much to happen out of it. And I really think Darvin Ham was actually brought in not for this year, but for future years.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've always hated the Westbrook deal. We had Geeter on last season, who was really hyped for the team, and I had to bite my tongue because I just had a feeling that 80 would get hurt and Westbrook would be what he became. But I'll just say it now. I think the Lakers pull it out. I think they trade Russell Westbrook. It might be a 3 or 4 team swing, but they're going to get it done.
Going to get all over the trade machine, huh? 3 or 4 team. That's going to be very, very fun. I mean, it'll be fun to talk about.
Throw David Price in that trade, will you?
All right. Well, thanks, Greg, for joining us. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Bergman Greg. He's also on Instagram as well. I know in the past you would do lives talking Lakers. I don't know if you still do Dodgers as well.
No, I don't do either of them anymore. Too much going on.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
He's corporate Greg. Come on.
Yes, corporate. Yes.
Busy man.
I appreciate you guys having me on. So thank you very much. That was fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank
Greg.
you. Yes.
Appreciate
Make sure to listen
Anytime.
to Greg on ESPN 710. We're closing out now. Make sure to subscribe to the Incline Dodgers wherever you get your podcasts, and read Fansided. They got all kinds of sports content. Until then, you'll hear from us pretty soon. We hopefully have a couple more exciting guests in the works. So peace out, everyone.